Greetings, friends. Sam Rajovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Today is, not going to be a typical show. I'll tell you that much. Today is going to be actually a show that I have not wanted to do ever. But unfortunately, at this time, I've got to. So bear with me here because this is tough. There is very little that I enjoy doing more professionally than being with you Monday to, through Friday here on the What's Right show, behind the What's Right microphone, going through stuff, talking to you and talking with you through the issues of our day. But I just can't keep doing it, folks. I don't like to quit, no, but here's the reality. The hours in the day are finite. I have a day job. My day job is getting busier and busier. I got a lot of cases. I got a lot of clients that depend on me. The problem with the show, right, it's a beautiful problem, but it takes time to put together. Even on a light prep day, we're talking, 2.5 hours, maybe 3 all in. It's a lot. And so I've come to a painful decision that I've got to pull the plug on this for now. I've got to step away from this, and I've got to focus on my work. Not to mention, of course, I've got my other project beside the law firm, which is software, and that's evolving right now at a fast clip. Certainly, you are aware of all the changes happening with AI and opportunities in that area, and I just need time to do it. And one of the things I tried here, and Robbie, I briefly touched on this yesterday. I like to always surprise you with the good news. And that is, we made the decision to go to an hour show down from 2, because as many of you have listened to me since the early days on KXNT here in beautiful sunny Las Vegas, you'll know that I was on for a number of years from 1 to 2, then 1 to 3, and we did very well in that time slot. And back a few months ago, beginning of the year, we moved to the 6 p.m. hour. And we, of course, record the podcast. We publish the podcast. Podcast numbers have been doing well. And the latest with having us switching the time frame is literally into March, going into April, we doubled, sort of a little behind on the reporting, doubled our audience in a time slot that was not doing very well. So, objectively, this show has been a success. And it kills me to pull something that is, in fact, successful. I can't find a way to replicate myself. And that's really what it comes down to. So today will be my last show. And this is tough. I have come to love getting your emails. Many of you I've spoken to. A number of you I represent. You are my clients. And I just had a wonderful client phone call yesterday with a gentleman who is going to have us help him and his family, and longtime listeners. And we're having the call, and I didn't, honestly, I didn't have the heart to tell him that I would be ending the show this week. I wanted to wait and tell all of you at once. So here we are. Today will be the last show. In honor of that, I'm going to go just through some of the stuff going on today lightly and touch on it. But I want to, first give some of my perspective, my life perspective in my time as being a host and coming up in the era of Trump. because that really is, if I go back to my start in radio, it was early in the Republican primary season. Trump hadn't even quite announced yet. My show started before Donald Trump announced. And this was out in LA. Yes, KBC, correct. And as I want to just go through that, and just a brief programming note. I have asked producer Robbie in the second half here to emerge from behind the producer curtain and join me for a conversation in the second half. And I want to thank him for his services and incredible work here on this program, and for being a great friend. And he's the guy behind the scenes, making it all happen. And I think it would be appropriate for our last What's Right show for you all to get to meet him. So I'm going to do that. Robbie's agreed. I'm not springing this on him. I got his permission. So we'll do that in the second half here, and put him on screen. Those of you who've got who have got the Sam cam, it'll be the Sam and Robbie cam today. So a little bit of memory lane, right? So this is how the radio thing started, by the way. I have been a lifelong admirer of Rush. We grew up, my sister and I, listening to Rush as kids, and we had years of that schooling, of that radio schooling, and one of the things that we didn't have growing up was a TV. My parents, for whatever reason, probably a very, very smart reason, even back then. Now everybody's talking about no screens, but back then said no screens, we're not going to do TV. So we were stuck basically in 1950, right? We had the radio, and I wasn't that interested in pop music. So what I listened to was news talk and talk radio. And of course, my dad was a Rush fan, so we had it on the replays on Saturday whenever we were running errands. So I'd listen at a minimum on Saturdays, and then anytime I played hooky from school, 9 to noon. If I was homesick, of course, I would put on Rush Limbaugh, and that would be the highlight of my week. And I'll tell you, it was always my dream to do radio. And back in what was that, 2015 or so, 2014, I had an opportunity to do a little weekend radio. Maybe even it was 2014, 2015, little weekend radio on KBC. They gave me an hour, said, go have fun with this, guy. And I was already, I'd come out of law school. I started my firm. We were very successful. Things were going really well. It was once a week. I could pre-record it on a Friday. It went up on a Saturday, and ratings all of a sudden took off. And next thing you know, there was an opportunity for a 7 p.m., 7 to 9 drive. Basically late drive time in LA. 7. You can still catch a lot of commuters, and so we went on, and of course, right away I thought of no one other than Robbie here to be my producer. Robbie and I had been friends forever, and so we did this, and we start the show, and it was kind of a depressing. It was at the tail end of Obama, right? Obama is president, and that was a very demoralizing time in our country's history, in our modern country's history. Obama has been, I think now it's confirmed, this radical departure from political norms, meaning he was the first Democrat to break with the traditional model of what Democrats were. Democrats weren't rabid zealots. Democrats weren't the type of people that ran around with the Weather Underground and blew up post boxes, right? And all of a sudden, in comes Obama, and he is surrounded by a cadre of revolutionaries. And it becomes very obvious that he wants to take the country over. And Republicans are demoralized a little bit coming out of the Bush years. Many of us, by year 8 of W's reign, are a little bit over it, feeling down and out. not that motivated, and the candidate that is foisted on us in that 2008 election, none other than John McCain, is not exactly a real pick-me-up. Nobody got excited about that. So it flopped. We got Obama. In comes 8 years of Obama. It was devastating for the country. And one of the, when I think back to the moment of why I wanted to get on the radio. I wanted to get on the radio because I love the medium. And people like Rush made me love the medium. But I also wanted to make a difference. I also wanted to get Republicans excited about what was happening, the possibility of getting rid of Obama and whoever his anointed successor would be, right? The idea of Obama's legacy getting cemented by another, 4 to 8 years of like-minded rule, it was, to me, not something that I wanted to have happen. So started the show, put a lot of energy into it. We started picking up an audience. Back then it was called Sam Nation. And we went through, this this push, right, to get people excited. And all of a sudden this Donald J. Trump guy comes on the scene. Now I want to talk about Trump here for a minute, because my overall feelings about Trump before Trump became President Trump, candidate Trump, political Trump, my overall feelings of Trump were very negative. I saw him as a vulgarian. I thought he was, 3 divorces, bunch of women, playboy guy, gaudy, gilded, horrible, just interior design. I mean, for Pete's sake, I'm not simpatico with Trump's style. But all of a sudden, this guy comes on the scene, and he's the only Republican in that entire sea of starting candidates that comes out of that is different, fundamentally different. He could articulate a vision for America that no one else could. All right. And he boiled it down. He just succinctly boiled down the entire problem with Obama's disastrous 8 years in office. We had an open border. We had crime that was out of control. By the way, along came Biden, 5 years later, and said, "Hold my beer." But no, a crime was out of control. We had an economy that was stagnant. We had regulation, death by 1,000 cuts. Businesses choking under the foot of all the Obama now vastly expanded regulatory agencies, and then to boot, we had a guy who fundamentally hated the country. I don't think this is a crazy thing to say. I don't think Obama loves America. I think Obama at every turn, whenever he was being honest, would say things like America should, share the stage with other countries, and we shouldn't be a world superpower, and we should be one of many, and we're not that exceptional. Who do we think we are to be the world's policeman? And buried in all of that, word soup was always some undeniable loathing that the man had for our country. And I'm not going to sit here and analyze it, but it was depressing. And along comes Donald J. Trump, and he's like, "God bless America," gets on some stage, literally goes hugging the American flag. I think sometimes we forget, folks, how incredibly refreshing that was. And I was this host on LA radio at a time when everybody's like, I don't know about Trump. And, even Rush at the time was some days, even though, he and Rush and Trump were pals. And before, you probably know the story, but before Trump decided to run for president, he ran the whole idea by Rush. The two of them played a round of golf and presumably down in Florida. Yeah. So yeah, they ran a golf and run it by him and kind of, and Rush shared the story a few times on air, but regardless, even Rush was tepid on him. Is he a true conservative? I don't know. This is a problem. Okay. And I was just enthralled with this guy. because he was blowing through the political melees that was really infecting our side, because we went through 8 years caring what the media said. That was the fundamental problem. When I look back at the Obama years, hell, I look back at the Bush years. Bush, in some respects, was butthurt at how mean the media was to him. Remember this? Which is why in his post-presidency he decided, I'm gonna rehabilitate my image. Everybody's gonna love me. Everybody's gonna love me, and he cares more about being loved than he cares about being right. And then under Obama, man, I mean, everybody from Chris Matthews on down was getting chills up their legs every time Obama opened his mouth. Barry couldn't say, string together 2 sentences without people having the media having some sort of, sexual arousal almost over it. And we Republicans were sitting there going, oh, this guy's dangerous. This guy's a problem. This guy's, and don't criticize him, Sam. You know what? You just don't like that a powerful black man is president. Somebody told me that. I'm like, I don't care what color he is. He hates our country, and his politics suck. So that's a problem. But we were demoralized, is my point. Along comes Trump. He just doesn't give a rip. He just blows through all the. You don't have to make nice at the media. You can just tell them to go screw off. You don't have to make nice with the Republican political establishment. You just roll all over them and blow them out of the water. You just do that. And I mean, it was a beautiful thing to behold. I mean, I loved every minute of it, and many of you did as well. And so I was really one of the few voices at the time, certainly in LA and in talk radio in LA, the only voice probably in LA at the time, who, I was outspoken pro-Trump from day one, and staked my reputation and all sorts of things on him winning in 2016. Robbie, still one of my favorite shows, is when he won, and that was the first time that we played the Air Force One theme. We came back into the studio Wednesday night following Trump's surprise victory over Hillary Clinton in November. So that was my background. I got into this thing to get the country on a better footing in my own small little tiny way. And I think along the way I've made some difference. I'll be honest, I don't know if I've made as much difference as I had hoped. And one of the things that I will tell you right now is it's a crowded landscape. There's all sorts of fracturing in this market. And I love, I love my following here in Las Vegas and growing following online. And in time, this would have likely built into something larger. The problem is that the clicks are going to the crazies. The clicks are going to the crazies. And that is a game I'm just not going to play. I've always been very truthful with you, and I've never shared an opinion here that is not heartfelt. I say I'm rarely wrong, always right. Sometimes I'm wrong, and I'll acknowledge it when that happens. But I never ever say something here that I run through a filter. Is this going to cost me some following? I just don't do that. And so there it is. Unfortunately, time is limited. Years are limited. I have some strong career goals for myself that are, bigger than this. And one thing that I intend on doing is to find a way to resurrect this at the appropriate time and come back, maybe in a different format, maybe just a weekly, 15-minute check-in, do something small. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I want some time to regroup. And right now, again, I mean, I'm sure you're reading what's going on. I've certainly been talking about it with AI. I have to buckle down and prepare my firm and prepare my, my tech side of my business for what's coming. All right. And that just is going to require an incredible amount of time that I need. All right. Hang tight. I got to get producer Robbie here in just a few minutes. Sam Murjovsky on the What's Right Media Network. Be right back.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Well, as I mentioned before, I am rarely wrong, always right. Sam Rajovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, if you're just tuning in, today's a somber day announcing my last day doing the What's Right show. Yes, not the happiest of moments, not something that I really want to do, but as I was explaining at the beginning of the hour, I just don't have enough time to work. And I got this firm that's growing. I've got endeavors that need my attention. And this is 2, 3, sometimes more hours a day spent doing something that I love, but just, I need some, I just need more time. Promised you that as we came back out of the break, I would introduce you to a very good friend of mine. Someone who has been at my side throughout these many years, both at Sam Nation and at the What's Right show, my producer, Robbie Haglund. Now, many of you have known about Robbie, producer Robbie. He has been a fixture hidden behind the scenes of the What's Right show. And so I guess this is a peek behind the curtain of sorts. And I'm loving it. And without much ado, here is producer Robbie. Robbie, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Sam. It's a pleasure to be here after, I don't know, a decade.
So the first thing I need to have you clear up for people is, are you real?
I mean, if we had been doing this a year ago, there'd be no question. Now there will still be a question because of AI.
Yeah, that's true. No, so Robbie, when did we meet? I've told the story before on the radio, but you can confirm that that I haven't misled anybody.
We met when you were, I think, a sophomore in high school, and I was a freshman in Irvine, California. And I don't know, I think hit it off pretty quickly. And I was always in and out, it felt like. I did a Mormon mission. I did some time in the military. And it seemed like every time I left and went somewhere and came back, that our friendship grew from that small little kernel in uni high school. And it was really, it's really a nice thing because you go away and you lose touch with a lot of people. Things kind of fall by the wayside, and you decide, who are the people that I'm really excited to see when I get back? Who are the people that I want to deepen my friendships with? And, I feel like that's been such a huge benefit for us, is me kind of exiting and re-entering the picture repeatedly.
Yeah, I'll tell you my favorite memory. My favorite memory, well, this one it always comes back to my mind, is when Sherry was basically in labor with Daniel, who is now 18 and is graduating actually, this weekend. And so my heavily pregnant, basically ready to burst wife, on our way to the hospital, this is in California. On the way to the hospital, I say to her, my friend Robbie is in town from the military for the weekend. I mean, and of course she knew you because I met my wife at a party that you attended. In fact, you hit on my wife. That's how I remember it too. But we're going to forget that for a second. So I said, we got to meet Robbie. Robbie's in town. He's here with some military buddies. I got to see Robbie. And Sherry's like, we're going to go to the hospital. I go, yeah, but come on, we got to eat a little bit before. She's like, I'm not allowed to eat. I'm going, well, listen, honey, I have to eat. Okay. I'm not having my firstborn child on empty stomach. So we met you for like tacos somewhere near the hospital. You remember this?
I remember you saying, "Hey, I'm still up for dinner, but can we pick a place that's on the way to Hoag Hospital?"
Yeah. And we get there and I'm like, so hey, I think Sherry's in labor. And Robbie's like, what? Yeah. You probably thought I was, see, that was your warning shot right there. That was it. You should have known from that point forward that should stay clear of me, that I'm absolutely crazy. Anyway, so by the way, Sherry rolls in the hospital. I think it was like dinner. Daniel was born. I should know this. I mean, really within an hour or two of us leaving dinner. So Sherry left the taco joint, and 2 hours later, we had a kid. 9 pounds. No, yeah, 9 pounds, 4 ounces. A huge kid. Anyway, he's still big. All right, so that's a favorite Robbie memory. And then, let's see, and then the show, we started, I don't think you were in the early days of the weekend show. I don't remember that necessarily. Yeah. You were?
I was.
Weekend show. And then we started doing, and we had Dr. Audio. We had it in his studio. We still can't disclose where that is, but it was deep behind the orange curtain in a secret, undisclosed location. And it just sort of grew and grew from there. It was fun. I mean, it was pretty bad in the beginning. I have to say this too, folks. It was bad. You know, when you go on air, I still remember the very first time I was on air with like 2 or 3 comments when I joined Larry Elder on KBC. This goes way back, right? It was like a legal segment. It was me and my partner then, James Bergner, and we had a little segment on, and we said something, and it just, a radio host makes this look easy. And you start to do it, and you go, I'm supposed to talk for an hour, and then 2 hours, and then some shows, 3 hours. It's just wild, right? Insane. So anyway, so we started doing it, and I'll tell you, this. I want to ask you this, Robbie, and this to me is interesting just politically, because folks, I feel like I've had to drag producer Robbie kicking and screaming toward Trump, and it's taken me 10 years ish, 8. But I feel like, Robbie, something clicked in you. Maybe it was Joe Biden. Maybe it took Joe Biden, but something clicked in you where you came around. You came around to Donaldus Magnificus. Take me through this. This, I think, would fascinate our audience, because I was a huge pro-Trump show, and my producer was a skeptic. Oh, by the way, is that fair?
Very fair. And still a skeptic. I've changed a lot in ways that I wish more people like maybe Thomas Massey had changed. And, Massey was my guy for sure. That was kind of the ideology that I really vibed with. And what it took for me actually was, yes, the Joe Biden presidency. But it also took talking to a lot of libertarians who are smarter than me tactically. And so, I have a friend, Angela McArdle, was the chair of the Libertarian Party, and she just made so much sense to me in that she recognized Trump as a transactional person and said, hey, why don't we stop losing 100% of what we want to get done, and we just lose 90% or 80% or 70%. And it just made so much sense coming from an organization that I kind of, I never really was in the depth of the Libertarian Party, but I went to their convention to help get her elected, and she made deals with Trump to, things like getting Ross Ulbricht freed of the Silk Road, and other deregulatory promises, and really, made what I took as my ideology into less of a purism and more, where you can keep your hands clean and never get anything done, and and looking at it more as a compromise, and moving the ball down the field a few yards at a time. So that was actually the biggest change for me. And the other big change for me was, I think, seeing Trump and really reflecting on the way that he has been able to not be a neocon and also not be a peacenik, non-interventionist, that he recognized that that America has to act powerfully, that we can't just become victims to the rest of the world, that we need to take our place and exercise our mantle of responsibility with the power that we have, but without getting us dragged into these big projects. And so I think those were the two biggest factors for me kind of coming around. And, truth be told, I still I wasn't ready to vote for him in 2020, and voted for RFK kind of as a protest vote, being registered in California, and also signaling to the Democrats, hey, maybe if you guys did some stuff right, you'd still have my vote. I'm not just a Republican. I'm not a partisan. I'm not a party player, but I am very ideological. And it just seemed more and more that I could get more of my ideology with Trump than without him.
Yeah, it's interesting because where do you think, and this is maybe kind of actually a very shallow question, but where do you think Massey went off the rails? I mean, I talked about this yesterday, on the program, and I had my own take on it. So what's yours?
I think definitely the death of his wife had to contribute. And maybe not in like he went off the deep end way, but maybe he started really considering what he'd actually accomplished in Congress. And I could see that leading to a frustration if he had to take account for what he'd actually gotten done, being, a very good obstructionist when it was time to be an obstructionist. And the other thought is maybe, that's just always what he was good at, was being an obstructionist. And so he's lovable when what you need is somebody to obstruct, and not so lovable when it's time to get things done.
Yeah. Well, that's, I tackled it yesterday, and I'm not going to add anything to it. It's actually not even maybe as interesting as the 2024 coalition of the willing in support of Trump in opposition to what became obvious as sort of the reality of when Democrats get real power, which they briefly got, with the fall of Trump in the 2020 election. And it was far more horrifying than anything anybody imagined. I really do believe that there were a number of people out there who thought, what, Biden's a safe bet. He's going to be a mellow guy. It's going to be a return to normalcy. It's going to be it'll be more Clinton than even Obama. And it ended up being Obama on steroids. And I'll reference back to what I said today in the open. That was a dark period of history. And obviously the resulting presidencies of Donald Trump are downstream of those 8 years. So I don't know. I think I think a lot of people thought Biden would be just fine, and that he then ended up becoming a complete radical, and the realization that you have to be pragmatic to win, right? You've got to win. That it doesn't matter a hill of beans if you've got if you're 100% principled 100% of the time, if you lose, right? And granted, Massey, the thing about Congress, right? Let's be honest, and it's why I think I really, and I've said this before, I mean, a congressman is the most worthless job on the planet. I would never want it. It's just, it's a tough thing. But you just have to get reelected in what is a relatively small area of the country, and you can deliver for that area and basically be terrible for the rest of the country, and everything's going to be fine. So the problem is that there was sometimes, like, a great example of this would be the one big beautiful bill. Now, principally debt, deficit spending, bad. But as I like to say, as I was contemplating the bill and if I was for it or not, and we went through this on air, with the audience, and I, ultimately, I something clicked in my head where I go, you know what? No debt, a lot of debt, not really relevant if we don't have a country anymore. If we completely cede our sovereignty to criminal alien gangs. What did Kamala Harris call them? Transnational criminal organizations. I prosecuted transnational criminal organizations. Okay.
I think she was the one who made them trans, right?
Yeah, right.
With the free surgeries in prison.
Yeah, it's
after
good.
She
you
prosecuted
could be
them.
right. You could be one of those cartel capos and literally melt people in in vats, or feed them to pigs, and then Kamala Harris and Joe Biden would give you a free vagina in federal prison on our taxpayer dollars. So that's, that was an example. Like, we don't have a country if we don't have borders, and we need to fund it. And the Democrats are going to play hardball with Trump. So let's just pre-fund the border security and ICE. Let's do it. Let's go. And Trump has absolutely not let me down. And not let any of us down in that department. It's clearly he has been able to secure the border. Clearly, we do not have the same problem, nowhere near what we had under Biden. And the welcome mat for every scummy douchebag to sneak in here and do bad things has been ripped away. Foreign policy, you touched on it before, libertarian, and again, you're not producing right now, so I have to mind the clock. I'm just keep your eye on the time. Foreign policy, how do you rate Donald J. Trump on foreign policy against other presidents?
Remains to be seen the rest of the term, but so far, I think he may be the best foreign policy president of my lifetime. And I think, you look at the challenges coming into 2020 after the absolute debacle of Afghanistan withdrawal, and we looked weak on the world stage, and that emboldens our enemies. And so one of the first things Trump did coming in was he started, kicking the CCP out of Panama, kicking the CCP out of our region, going after Venezuela in a flawless raid that I think really showed the world, maybe Afghanistan is not what we should be looking at as a measure of what the American military can do.
100%.
The other thing I really love about it that I think is underappreciated is he didn't go bomb some civilians in Venezuela to make a point. He said to the leaders, to the decision makers, to the people who actually control their position for or against the United States, he said to them, hey, if you're stepping out of line, we're not bombing a couple factories in your country. We're coming in the middle of the night and we are snatching you out of your bed and we're putting you into a prison. And that's your best case scenario. If we don't feel like doing that, maybe we'll just kill you like the Ayatollah. And, I think Iran remains to be seen, but this is a test of not just how our special operations units operate, but how kind of the big military can operate and the kind of damage it can do, what kind of sustained campaign it can wage without falling into any of the traps that the neocons willingly fell into. So, I think it's incredible. I think it's our only chance against China. And the most dangerous part of, I think, Obama's vision of sharing power is that that's exactly when the world gets most dangerous, is when two people both think that they can win a war against each other. You never have a 7-foot bodybuilder who gets into a fight at a bar with, a 5'3" roly-poly guy. They know it's always guys who each of them think they have a credible chance of winning. And that's the insanity of the Obama position there, is just that you're creating a much more dangerous world. We called it the Pax Romana, the Pax Britannica, the Pax Americana for a reason. It's when we have these unipolar sources of power that things are most stable.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Robbie, this has been an incredible road to be on with you, and I hope it's not the end. And I hope that there's something else here for us in the future. But I just want to reiterate, this has been an incredible journey, and I appreciate you deeply, my friend, and thank you for everything that you've done for me and for our audience. And I'm glad that on this day that they could meet you and see what you're all about.
Well, thank you, and thanks for dragging me along on the journey.
I love you, man.
Love you too.